Okay, so we're going to pick up now with slide 8. We're going to start with slide 8 and look at Jeremiah 25, the cup of God's wrath. So Jeremiah, after receiving the prophecy that the rebellion against Babylon will fail, the one that started in year 4 of Jehoiakim, after receiving that prophecy will fail, that rebellion will fail, he received that prophecy. He then goes on to get this prophecy. And he says this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, said to me. Take from my hand this cup filled with the wine of my wrath, and make all the nations to whom I send you drink it. When they drink it, they will stagger and go mad because of the sword I will send among them. All right. So this is the theme that I want to talk to you about, the motif, the idea, the symbol that Jeremiah uses to talk about God's wrath here. And I want to ask you a couple of questions about this. So notice how so this is a conversation between God and Jeremiah. And God tells Jeremiah, take from my hand this cup filled with the wine of my wrath. So I want to ask you a question. Did God actually have a cup in his hand that he hands to Jeremiah? I mean, he says, take this cup from my hand. I've got a cup in my hand, you take it. Now, we could imagine this as a vision, and it might have been, although we don't really get any idea that it's a vision here in this part of Jeremiah, and we don't see a lot of visions in Jeremiah in general. His revelation from God usually is oral, although we do have some visual imagery. At the beginning of his reign, God says, what do you see? He says, I see a pot pointing away from the north, a big cauldron. And that was God's wrath about to be poured out. So he does sometimes see things. We're not told if he sees anything here. But God tells him, take this cup filled with the wine of my wrath and take it. And then he tells Jeremiah, make all the nations to whom I send you drink it. So if we read this very literally, and sometimes, Christians, because they love the Bible, because they want to follow it as God's word, Christians can become, I would say, needlessly literal with the language of the Bible sometimes. So we want to ask ourselves the question, are we supposed to imagine that God is literally giving Jeremiah a physical cup that he is then literally to carry around to these different nations and make them drink it? The different kings, the different officials in every nation we're going to read right after this. Is that what God is asking Jeremiah to do? Like a sign act, right? This sets up like it's some kind of sign act. Remember, he put the yoke for the oxen on his shoulders, the wooden ones. The false prophet destroyed them. He talked about putting iron ones up on his shoulders. We saw last week he went and saw the potter working at his wheel, and then after that he took a clay flask, and took the elders of Jerusalem down to the valley of Tophet and shattered that clay bottle essentially. And those were sign acts, and he did multiple sign acts, and Jeremiah did some, and some of them are kind of, Isaiah did some of them as well as Hezekiah. Some of them are kind of crazy. Ezekiel, not Hezekiah. Some of them are kind of crazy, but this one doesn't look like it's something that Jeremiah can actually do. It looks like it's something that God is telling him as if he's going to do it. It's kind of a drama in the sense that he's acting like God is giving him a cup, and he's acting like he went around and gave it to everybody to drink, but in fact probably didn't. But we'll look at that in just a moment. We'll follow that up. But it says here, when they drink it, so it sounds again like they're literally going to drink it. And that may have been some of the rhetorical effect of this. It sounds like you're really going to do it. They will stagger and go mad because of the sword I will send among them. So here we start to see kind of the two levels of this image play out. On one level, it's a cup. In the cup is wine, and people are supposed to drink it. But the wine is not wine, it's wrath. And when they drink it, they stagger, kind of like people do when they get drunk. They stagger around and fall and maybe pass out. They stagger and go mad, kind of go out of their mind. But the way they die is not through actually imbibing or ingesting anything from the cup. It's the sword that will come. So you can't really follow this image all the way out literally, that they're going to drink something that it's poison and then they die. They're drinking this cup figuratively, and that means they're going to die in some kind of attack. Now, if you look at slide 9, it says, "So I took the cup from the Lord's hand." So this is what makes you think Jeremiah is actually taking something. And again, maybe in a vision he is. Physical, actual cup, it doesn't seem likely. "I took the cup from the Lord's hand and made all the nations to whom he sent me drink it." So Jeremiah's going now to list all the places he went to and made them drink this cup. Jerusalem and the towns of Judah, its kings and officials. So Jeremiah supposedly went to the kings, to the officials, and notice it's kings. It's not just a king, but it's the series of kings. The Jehoiakim and Jehoiakim and Zedekiah. They're all going to go through and all of them drink it. And the officials. These are people who put Jeremiah in prison, who opposed his message, who didn't trust him. He's going to do it to make them a ruin and an object of horror and scorn. Now notice what comes next. Who else is supposed to drink of this? Well, slide 10 tells us it's Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and not just Pharaoh, but all his attendants and his officials and all his people. I mean, at this point, if it's all his people, I think we're starting to get the point. This couldn't literally have happened. This is some kind of dramatic picture that Jeremiah is presenting to us. And all the foreign people there, all the kings of Uz, all the kings of the Philistines, those of Ashkelon, Gaza, Ekron, and the people left at Ashdod, those are all the Philistine cities. Slide 11, Edom, Moab, and Ammon. I mean, this list is starting to pile up here. And all the kings of Tyre and Sidon, the kings of the coastlands across the sea, because remember the Phoenicians, Tyre and Sidon, were traders. And so they would go across the sea to the Greeks, to the Romans, to North Africa, and they had these trading colonies. So all of those people are going to drink it. Dedan, Tema, and Buz, and all who are in distant places, all the kings of Arabia. So we're getting thousands of miles away from Judah at this point. All the kings of Zimri, Elam, and Media. That's Persia. That's beyond the Babylonian Empire. That's modern-day Iran. And all the kings of the north, near and far, one after the other, all the kingdoms on the face of the earth. After all of them, now notice what it says next. After all of them, the king of Shishak will drink it too. Now this is interesting because Shishak is a code name for Babylon. It's another term for Babylon. So he throws this in here. Shishak is going to have to drink it too. So this kind of recapitulates what we just saw about the exile, about the Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians coming in and destroying everything. And for 70 years, everybody serves them. But then after that prophecy tells us, the Babylonians are going to be destroyed. So Jeremiah is letting everybody know a cup of wrath is coming around. Everybody's going to drink it because Nebuchadnezzar is going to destroy everyone. And then when everyone's been destroyed, Nebuchadnezzar will get the cup too, and he too will drink it. You have to wonder what this kind of message would have done to the people in Judah. And this is for, let's remind ourselves, this is for the Judeans. The Babylonians are not going to get this message. The kings on the other side of the sea, the kings in Arabia and all these far off places, all the people of Egypt, they're not going to get this message. This is crafted as if it were a message to the whole world, when in fact it's a message to Judah. So if you're in Judah and you're a decision maker and you've just decided with King Jehoiakim that you're going to rebel against the Babylonians, and for 7 years after that it looks like everything's good, you might make it because it takes Nebuchadnezzar so long to get to you. And a prophecy like this would eat away at you because it's going to tell you, no, it's actually coming, and it's coming for everybody, and it's coming for everybody, including Babylon. And at that point, you start to realize that Jeremiah is not a prophet who's like a puppet for the Babylonians. This is not a man who's trying to pick a side. He doesn't pick a side. he stands with God, and God is going to wipe out everybody, according to Jeremiah. So what Jeremiah's prophecy does, it definitely alienates him from his fellow Judeans, but it doesn't put him in the camp of the Babylonians, because they're worshiping a false god too. And that's what Jeremiah says at the beginning of chapter 25. Is that's the big problem. Everybody's been worshiping gods other than Yahweh. So this message is dramatic. It's very vivid. And the effect of it is basically to say everybody's going to stumble, everybody's going to suffer, including the people who are oppressing us now. Now, if we look at slide 12, we'll kind of flesh out a little bit this the idea behind the imagery. God says, "Then tell them, this is what the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, says: Drink." So now we're starting to see why it's a cup. Drink, get drunk, and vomit, and fall to rise no more. So the idea of drinking God's wrath is supposed to emulate, let's say simulate, not simply when you're sitting down and have a beverage, like some of you maybe are doing this morning in Sunday school. You guys can lift your coffee cups now, or tea, take a sip. It's not just you're drinking your coffee with your donut. This is supposed to be a powerful, intoxicating drink. And it's supposed to be some very powerful alcoholic beverage, wine in this case, that the people are going to drink to the point that that it disables them. They drink, they get drunk, they vomit, they fall down, and they can't get up again. And in that way, it kind of emulates death. And if you've noticed, and I almost put a picture today up, but it was too heartbreaking to put it up, but of homeless people. Who alcoholics are people on the street. I saw plenty of this. You see it in America, but I saw plenty of this when I was in Eastern Europe. People were alcoholics on the street, and they sometimes just look dead because they're drunk. They pass out. Boom. They're wherever they're at. They just fall over as if they've been poisoned. And I think that's the image that Jeremiah is trying to evoke here. That when you take God's wrath, it's gonna be almost like drinking something and it seems like you're dead. That's the closest thing I guess Jeremiah could get to kind of convey this to the people of what God's wrath is going to be like. Now, I want to show you here, next, I want to show you how this theme, this idea, this motif gets picked up and used in other parts of the Bible. Before I do, I'm going to stop and upload this video, and then we'll start again with slide 13.